Hi, everyone. This is Sam Silverman, Managing Partner of EB5AN. Thank you for taking time to join us on today's webinar. Today, we're going to be speaking with Karthik, an EB5 investor from India who joined our Twin Lakes, Georgia rural EB5 project and who recently received his I-526E temporary green card approval. So first, Karthik, congratulations on the recent approval. We're really excited to hear that news.
Thank you.
To start, I guess maybe introduce yourself, share a little bit about your background, experience, what led you to the United States originally, and why EB5 was kind of the next step for you in your journey in the US.
Totally. My name's Karthik. I'm from Bangalore, which is like a city in the southern part of India. I first moved to the US when I was 19, and this was back in 2017, to pursue a career in music. So I'm a musician, I'm a guitarist, I'm a songwriter. I first came to Minnesota and I went to a private music college there, after which I transferred to Berklee College of Music in Boston and then moved to LA. And now I work as an artist manager in the entertainment industry and I specialize in legacy rock. The reason why I pursued EB5 was that, given what I do and the nature of my work, it was so hard for me to secure a long-term solution to immigration because the H-1B, which is something that most people consider wasn't a viable option, given that you have to apply for it through an employer. And since I was more of a freelancer, it didn't really make sense, which I'm not now, but at the time I was, and it didn't really make sense for me to, you know, um, a- apply for something that I wasn't even eligible for. And the other option for me was an O1, which again is something that's very hard to get, at least when you're starting out and you're a new college grad. You don't have the credentials, you don't have the awards, and there's so many other criteria that you have to fulfill when it comes to applying for an O1. So you have to be somebody that's a very important figure in the industry. And I didn't have the accolades that it took. And I mean, honestly, I feel like now I'd be in a position to apply for it given the progress that I've made, but I wasn't at the time. So that led to, being in this conundrum where I wasn't really sure how I was going to proceed. Um, and EB5 was pretty much the only option on the table for me because it was the only one that I could apply for that, well, one, wasn't employment based, and two, it was something that I could do on my own. And I wasn't beholden to any employer, and I didn't have to depend on somebody else validating who I was and how good I was at what I did. It was something that I could do by myself to solve my immigration problems for good. And given that I do work in the music industry, um, it's something that I needed because I live in Los Angeles and this is where the industry is. And I needed to be in LA in order to build my career and get better and network. And I think it was the right decision for me, given what I do and who I am.
Got it. Got it. Okay, that makes sense. So kind of once you kind of did that initial research and you figured out, okay, EB5 is going to be the right fit, just given my long-term career goals, the flexibility that I need on the employment side. Once you kind of came to that decision, what was your next step? What did you kind of do to, start advancing that decision and make that happen?
So actually, I discovered the viability of the EB5 quite late into my OPT. So I had finished grad school at USC, and I got about a year of OPT, and I had discovered that I was actually, eligible to do this stuff um, quite late into my OPT. So I just had about I want to say 3 or 4 months left before my OPT had ended. And that's when I started doing a lot of research into EB5 and getting serious about it and wanting to apply for it. So that's when I did consultations, and I read about it online, and I tried to find the best project for me. And it was, I think, through another EB5 person that I met my lawyer, Anitha, and she's the one that told me about EB5AN and the Twin Lakes project. And that's when I kind of did my research into learning about the project, what it is, what it does, its results, and how viable it was for me, not just in terms of securing immigration, but also monetarily. And that's kind of how it began. But that, like, the whole thing happened at the 11th hour because I was quite late in my process of of doing research and trying to come up with a game plan for doing the EB5. And I'm glad that I did it when I did, because if I had delayed, then I probably would have been too late to adjust my status from within the US, because I was already in the country at the time.
Got it. So starting with the immigration attorney, how did you decide to hire Anita? Did you interview a few people and then go back to her? Or kind of what was your thought process in terms of, going with her versus some of the other immigration attorneys that you were in conversations with?
So she was pretty much the only lawyer that I consulted. I did consult I think it was about one other regional center that I spoke to, but she was the only lawyer that I consulted. And when I spoke to her for the first time, I just knew how amazing she was. So she is somebody with a good track record. She has good references, and she's worked with regional centers. She's quite tight with them, and she understands how these projects work. And she's somebody that understood how the the concept of the source of funds can be presented in the best way possible, um, in a context that is very catered to my country of origin, right? And she's very good at that. And she's somebody also that I felt like was willing to go to bat for me and um, get my petition approved. And she was very on top of things. She was very responsive. She ensures that there are no loose ends. And after having a couple of calls with her, I just knew that she was the right fit for me, and I didn't want anyone else handling my case. So yeah, I mean, to start with, she was the only lawyer that I spoke to, and but I didn't need to look further because, she was the one for me.
Got it. Got it. And so you decided to work with her, and then, tell us a little bit about, what that source of funds documentation process was like. How long did it take? Was it, nights and weekends for a week or two providing documents? Like what was it like going through that kind of documentation process with her?
Overall, it was very smooth, and I think so. If I had more time, it would have been probably even better. But given the time crunch that I was under, it was actually very smooth. And she is very easy to work with, and the feedback that she gave me for each document that we submitted was exceptional. And she made sure to get me to present everything the way that USCIS would want to see it. And that's something that I find quite remarkable in her as an attorney, because she understands things and she knows how to present things in the best way possible. And the whole process, I want to say, took about 60 days to get everything consolidated and to have the funds arranged and to transfer the funds from my home country to the US and then to the escrow account. The whole process was very seamless. And for me to get together my source of funds, it took about 60 days, maybe a little less.
Got it. Okay, so during that source of funds documentation process, what was your kind of approach to researching and evaluating potential EB5 regional centers and projects? What was kind of your approach to doing that?
Totally. So when I came across regional centers, at least the regional centers that I was investing in, or investigating, I was very particular about trying to find a regional center that ensured that my funds were paid back. And I looked at EB5AN, and it stood out to me for multiple reasons. One, it had 100% USCS approval rate, which was huge. And for the Twin Lakes project specifically, all the jobs have been created already. And that was big because there were so many other regional centers that I had come across in projects where they were taking your money, but construction hadn't even begun. So that was a giant red flag. But when I came across EB5AN and all the work that you did, I just knew that you had a really good track record, and it was something that I felt very safe going with. Plus, for for most EB5AN projects, uh, the EADs and the advanced parole documents were being issued in 60 to 90 days, which is exactly what happened to me. And I needed that because I had a job at the time, and in order for me to keep my job, I needed my employment authorization. So I had an easy time kind of working with my company to ensure that they would wait until I got it. So that was very nice of them. But I think all of those things really just fit together. It was very cohesive, and that's the reason why I picked EB5AN and the Twin Lakes project and Coulter specifically.
Got it. Got it. And I guess on the developer side,
Yeah.
what about Coulter was attractive to you in terms of, the company that really is responsible for, using your EB5 funds, executing the business plan, building the project and ultimately making money and then being able to
Yeah.
repay the EB5 capital back to investors.
Yeah, totally. So when I looked at Coulter, the first thing that I noticed was that they had been in business for more than 25 years. So they clearly know their stuff. They've done this for a long time, and this is something that I think they have a good track record of doing. And the second point is that they put in more than $29 billion across real estate projects around the country. So I kind of, I mean, just reading that, I knew that this is a developer that clearly knows what they're doing. And they're not just good at building projects, but they're also good at handling capital. And then I came across this testimonial from a guy named Kenneth Jones, who I believe is the president and CEO of Third Lake Capital, which is an investment firm and an equity partner of Coulter. And he basically talked about how in the 2008 financial crisis, Coulter was made sure that every single one of their investors were paid. Unlike most companies at the time that went completely bankrupt, and investors were kind of screwed over, and all that. So after reading that, and after reading Coulter's history, and after reading the extent of their involvement in real estate and the projects that they did, it seemed like the right fit. And the project itself had created all jobs, and the homes were being sold at an amazing rate, and the business was generating positive cash flow, which was very important because I think it kind of depends on the sector of the EB5 project that you choose, but ideally you'd want to pick something that generates good cash flow, which Twin Lakes was doing, thanks to Coulter. So that really went into my decision to choose a Coulter project, and I feel very comfortable with investing my capital with Coulter.
Got it. And in terms of the kind of EB5 aspects of the project, you mentioned one of them, the advanced job creation. Obviously, that's a critical piece to obtaining the permanent green card later on. What about the rural TEA designation of Twin Lakes? How did that kind of fit into your decision, for Twin Lakes specifically, and then also when you were evaluating other projects?
Yeah, so that was actually very important for me because I was looking for a rural project given, well, one, the reduction in investment amount, which I think was 800,000 as opposed to 1.1 million, and two was processing times. So I was told when I applied that I would get my EAD in about 60 days, which I did, and my 526 in 12 months, which is exactly what happened for me. So I got mine in exactly 12 months. And and both of those factors were key in me choosing a rural project because processing times for people from my country of origin are just ridiculously long. So I needed to pick something that, in a way, kind of was just expedited the whole thing. So yes, picking a rural project for the EB5 for me was very important, and I'm happy that I picked such a good one.
I guess stepping back, away from the project itself, and just going back to the regional center.
hmm
During your research, what were some of the kind of key differences that you saw between EB5AN and some of the other regional centers, just in terms of transparency and access to information? What kind of was different that you saw and made made you more comfortable working with EB5AN?
Well, EB5AN was extremely great at communicating, which I found was quite lacking in some of the other regional centers that I spoke to. When I took a look at the subscription agreement, I liked how everything was laid out in a clear and legible way, and that it felt like I was actually getting into business with people that were trustworthy. And yourself and Mike, and it was very great when we had the initial call, and you told me about what EB5AN does and your track record, and how you guys operate and all the projects that you guys help build. And it was something where I felt like I was getting into business with good people. And I think, for me, that's very important because even though I may not be as well versed as, let's say, my dad, who is in this business and he can perhaps read a document and find the technical details a lot better. For me as an investor, it was about basically working with people that I felt like I could trust. And EB5AN, right from the get-go, was very responsive. It was quite helpful. It showed me as an investor what I needed to know in order to make the right decision, which I didn't find in any other regional center. So it was kind of a no-brainer, to be honest. And I'm glad that I did this.
Got it. And so now, kind of looking back, through the process, now you've got the I-526C approval. Obviously, you've taken advantage of the EAD and advanced parole, with your current job, which has been really convenient. What are your long-term goals in the U.S., in terms of becoming a citizen and settling down? Like what does the future look like now that that you've got clarity on the immigration side?
Yeah, totally. And I think that's a huge weight that's been lifted off my shoulders because tackling immigration was my biggest challenge ever since I came to the US. And now that that part of it has been taken care of or is being taken care of, I can now focus on my career and everything that I want to do. And I think long term, once I I mean, now that I've got my 526E, it's only a matter of time before I'm eligible to apply for citizenship, which I want to do. And then once that's taken care of, I want to use the rest of my time to do what I love, which is to work in the music industry. So I currently work in artist management, but going forward, I would want to work at Universal, which is my dream label. And I go in there with a mission, which is to empower artists and everything that they do. And it's my duty to then bring equity and fairness to the world of music and to create an atmosphere where everybody, including artists and people on the business side, can coexist without there being a need to feel like you got to rip somebody off, which is how the industry is operated. So that's kind of that's my grander plan. That's what I want to do, which is to make the music industry a better place and to continue doing what I love, which is empowering artists.
Got it. Got it. Well, we're very excited to see how that plays out. And I guess, just kind of final topic, just, having now gone through the process, source of funds, doing the research on different regional centers, evaluating projects, making the investment, filing the applications, getting approval. What kind of high level advice would you have for, new potential investors who are, just becoming aware of the EB-5 program and are considering, making an investment in a project going forward?
Yeah, I would say, well, go with EB5AN and Coulter, obviously, right now. I'm kidding. I would say, do your research into finding a project that you feel like you know. And what I mean by that is there's so many different industries where you could invest in. There's hospitality, there's real estate, there's education. There's some pretty interesting EB5 projects that are involved with building a college or a school or something. So you got to pick the one that you think you can understand well, because that is going to put things in the context of the actual EB5 project that you'll be investing in. So that way you can know about how the project is functioning, what are all the key things that you can look for, what does the project's finances look like, and how do you feel like this project is going to perform in the next couple of years, given all the market volatilities and all that stuff. So it's important for you to find a project where they have a good track record. The regional center is one that also has a good track record, and invest in projects that are trustworthy and that have not only returned your that not only make an effort to return your capital, but also are good in terms of the immigration front. So you have to find someone with a high approval rate, and you have to also find a project that you kind of are familiar with, so that you can answer all these questions and start ticking everything off the box. So that would kind of be my 40,000-foot view advice on how to go about doing this. And I mean, once you get a little deeper too, you'll find that within the same industry you can have two very different projects, and you want to pick the one that you feel like is the right fit for you. And one of them being rural versus urban, and again, that's something that the investor has to do some research on to see what they feel like is the best fit for them. And then you look at the financials, and then you look at job creation, and then you look at processing times. So all of these things then kind of fit together.
Got it. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Karthik, for taking some time
Of course.
today to share your experience. I really appreciate it, and yeah, just appreciate you placing your confidence and trust in our firm and with Coulter. And yeah, I'm glad that things yeah, just happened on the exact timeline that we were anticipating. And yeah, just really excited for you, and yeah, wish you the best.
Thank you so much, Sam, and thank you so much again for all the help with the project too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.